Hello everyone and welcome to animation tutorials by using Blender. In this tutorial we will learn how to animate at the same time object rotation and translation in Blender. Over here we can see a cube that translates and rotates at the same time. The rotation is around all three Euler axes, x, y, and z. The graph shown over here shows angles of rotation and translation positions as functions of time. There are three cycles of motion. In each cycle, the cube starts from rest, it accelerates, then it reaches a constant angular and translational velocities, and finally its acceleration is decreased and the cube stops. Here's the final rendered file. Let's open it. And here it is. By the end of this video tutorial, you will learn how to render this file such that you can include it in your presentation or show it to your friends and colleagues. For clarity and as a proof of principle, in this video tutorial we deal with a relatively simple shape in order to explain the main concepts. You can easily expand this example and make it more realistic. Our tutorials are specially designed for students and engineers with mechanics, physics, mechatronics, and robotics backgrounds. The idea is to explain how to create animations of robots, drones, and similar mechatronics devices by using Blender. Also, we will create tutorials explaining how to use Blender for physics simulations and how to couple Blender with Python. In this tutorial, you will learn: Number 1. How to define start and end keyframes that are used for defining animation. Number 2. How to rotate and translate the cube at the same time. Number 3. How to change the velocity. Number 4. How to cycle the animation. And number 5. How to render the animation file. But before I start with explanations, I would like to mention the following. It took me a significant amount of time, energy, and planning to create this completely free video tutorial, as well as more than 350 free video tutorials that you can find on my YouTube channel. And consequently, I kindly ask you to press the like and subscribe buttons. Also, if you have some questions or a comment about the material presented in this lecture, please feel free to ask your question in the comment section below. Okay, let's start. Click on File and click on New and click on General. I will not save this animation. Okay, here's my empty Blender workspace. First, I need to make a few adjustments such that you can see the keyboard and mouse buttons that I'm pressing. This will help you to more easily reproduce this example on your computer. I will actually run a plugin which will track the buttons being pressed. You don't need to do this step. Over here, I install a plugin called Shortcut VUR, and I will run this plugin. And here is the outcome. For example, if I press left key, left mouse button, you see left over here. If I press the middle mouse button, you see middle. If I press the right mouse button, you see right. Let us press a key, for example, Q, W, or R. Okay, so you can see the buttons I'm pressing and you can see the mouse button. If you're not sure what I pressed, just look over here. Since some of you might not be familiar with Blender, I need to explain a few important things. First of all, you select objects by using the left mouse click. Okay, now the cube is selected. Again, press left to select. Then you can translate on or pan slide the view by pressing Shift and by holding the middle mouse button. So Shift, hold the middle mouse button, you can slide the view. You can rotate the view by holding the middle mouse button and by moving the mouse. Again, to rotate the view, hold the middle mouse button and you can rotate the view. Finally, you can zoom in or zoom out the view by pressing Ctrl and middle mouse button. Ctrl, middle mouse button, and you move the mouse. Or by rolling the middle mouse button if you have the mouse with the roller button. Next, let us make this cube more interesting by changing the texture. Consequently, click on Material Properties, and over here we will adjust the colors and the texture. Click over here and click on the checker texture. To see the checker texture, click over here, and here it is. Let's change the colors. Let's use yellow, bright yellow, and let's use red, bright red. Okay, here it is. Perfect. Next, let's create the first cycle of animation. To do that, press over here and press on the cube. Again, you can either press on cube and then press over here, it doesn't matter. Now, let's translate this cube and let's define the starting position. Zoom out, do the left mouse click, and move the cube, for example, over here. This is our starting position. Let's click over here to make the cube to be more brighter. Then let's click over here. First, we will create translational motion. That is, the cube should start from here and it should go to this position. To do that, expand this menu. Over here is the timeline, and timeline is very important for creating animations. Select the cube and on your keyboard press I. I will bring this Insert Keyframe menu and click on Location. And you will see over here this yellow rectangle. This yellow rectangle is saying to Blender, okay, this is our start frame. Next, move the frame to the frame 100. Then click on the cube, then click over here, and let's translate the cube. Move the cube to this position. Then over here, again I, to bring the Insert Keyframe menu and click Location. Okay, let's see the effect. First click over here. Now if you change this slider, you will see the magic. The cube moves. This is the initial frame and this is the final frame. And you can see that the cube is actually translating. Perfect. Next, let's add Euler rotations. To do that, first click over here. Then go back to the initial frame, to the frame 1, and again press I and click on rotation. Then move the slider to the frame 100. Over here, press R. And now we are in the rotational mode. You can see that we can rotate the cube as we wish. However, I want to rotate the cube around the z-axis. Consequently, on my keyboard, I will press Z to constrain the axis, and over here I can specify the rotation angle. I will type 360 and press Enter. Once you do that, again you need to press I and you need to select rotation. Okay, let's see the effect. Here it is, magic. Now at the same time the cube is translating and rotating around the z-axis. Perfect. Now let us repeat this procedure for rotations around the x and y axis. To do this, go to the initial slide, that is to the initial frame, then I, rotation, then go to the frame 100, then over here press R and press X. By pressing X, we are constraining the rotation around the x-axis. Then type 360, press Enter, press I again, and click on rotation. And let's see the effect. Okay, now our cube is translating, and at the same time, it is rotating around the x and z axis. Okay, let's include the y-axis rotation. Again, select the cube, press I, press rotation, move the slider to the frame 100, press R, and press Y to constrain the y-axis. Type 360, Enter, again I, rotation, and here it is. Now our cube is translating and rotating around x, y, and z axis. Perfect. Over here, the animation will last for 250 frames. However, after the frame 100, nothing happens. And over here, that is after the frame 100, we will have to bounce back our cube and we will have to repeat the animation 3 times. For that purpose, we need to adjust the end frame. Click over here and select 600. Perfect. Okay, next, click over here, then select Graph Editor. And over here, we can see a very interesting graph. This graph shows angle of rotation and position as the function of the frame. On this axis is the frame number, and on this axis is the position or the angle of rotation, depending on the line that you select. Let us run this simulation by pressing the space key, and let's see what happens. Now, you can observe the following. The box starts from rest, then it accelerates, it reaches more or less constant velocity, then it deaccelerates, that is, the acceleration is decreased, and finally it stops. And this graph precisely shows that. If we take the first derivative of this graph, we will obtain either the velocity or the angular velocity of our cube. Let's expand this menu. And over here you can look, for example, in translation. So if we kind of like only left this menu on, this graph will show x translation, right? And you can see acceleration, constant velocity, then acceleration is decreased, and finally the cube stops. Now, of course, you can change the shape of this graph. If you don't want to have this effect, that is, if you want the cube to move with a constant velocity and to spin with a constant angular velocity, you can do it easily by clicking over here and by selecting the interpolation mode, select the linear interpolation mode, and let's see what happens. Now, everything is linear. That is, the cube basically immediately starts moving with constant velocity. However, this is not so realistic because we know that if forces are acting on this body, we will have acceleration. So let's go back and let's choose the Bezier interpolation mode. That is our original case. Perfect. Next, let's create the bouncing animation. That is, currently our box only moves in one direction, it stops. However, we want the box to move back. To do that, click over here and go in timeline. Now, over here, move this slider to 200 and select this initial frame, then do Ctrl+C to copy it and simply press Ctrl+V to paste. And here it is. You can see that this frame is copied from here to here. And let's see the effect. Okay, first part of the animation stops and it goes back to the original frame. Perfect. Next, let's learn how to create cycles. To create cycles, click over here, then go to the graph editor. Then click over here and press A. After that, press N to bring this menu over here. Click on modifiers and click on add the modifier. Over here, click on cycles. And here it is. Here are the cycles. Let's adjust the cycles. Over here, press 2 since we want to have 2 cycles. And this part you don't need to touch. And let's see the effect. Okay? And you can track over here the frame number. First cycle, second cycle, and here's the final third cycle. And that's it. Simple as that. Next, let's learn how to render this animation. However, before we start with rendering, we need to check one very important thing. That is, we need to check our camera view. Over here, you can see the camera. Let's see what do we see on the camera. If we click over here, we will see the camera view. And let's run the animation. This frame is the frame that will be shown in the rendered animation. And we can see the problem. Obviously, the cube goes out of the view of our camera. We need to adjust the camera settings. The easiest way to do that is to click over here, click on camera, and you need to adjust the focal distance of the camera. Consequently, click over here and decrease the focal distance or the focal length of the camera. Let's do that and let's see the outcome. Okay. Now let's move a camera a little bit. You can do that by pressing G and by moving the camera. Okay, let's see the other edge. This might not be bad. And then let's increase a little bit the focal length to zoom the view a little bit. Then we need to decrease. And let's see the outcome. Let's move the camera a little bit to the left, again G, and move the camera. And let's see now what happens. Perfect. Click over here, and that's it. Next, let's learn how to create animation. To create animation, click over here. And the first step is to adjust the output folder. Click over here, and in my case, the output folder is given over here. Over here, you need to specify the name of the file or the name of the files. Let us type image and click on accept. There are two approaches for generating the rendered file. The first approach is to directly generate the movie. You can do that by selecting these options. However, I don't recommend this approach mainly because during the rendering process something can go wrong. And in the middle of the rendering process you will need to start everything from the beginning. An easier and more convenient approach is to first generate a series of PNG or JPG images. That is, we will generate a single image for every frame. And then later on we will glue all the images together, and we can do that in Blender. Consequently, I will select PNG and I will generate a series of images. Next, click on Render and click on Render Animation. And here it is. Over here you can see the frame number that's currently being produced, and we need to wait for 600. Here are the results. Here's the first image corresponding to the first frame, and over here is the image 600 corresponding to the last frame. And here it is. And for example, here's the image 292 corresponding to the frame 292. Perfect. Our next step is to glue all these images together and to create the final movie. Consequently, go over here, close this render window, then over here you need to click on a plus sign and you need to click on video editing and you need to select video editing. Okay, minimize this menu over here. Over here, click on sequencer. Then click on add and click on image sequence. Over here you need to locate the source folder. In my case, it's a temporary folder, and I need to select all images. So press A and click on add image strip. And here are the images. Now move them here such that they are nicely aligned. And we need to do one final step. Over here we need to adjust the frame rate. For example, we can use 30 frames per second, or you can use a higher frame rate. Let's specify the file name. Let's call this file final video. Then let's specify the output. Now we will not be rendering PNG files, we will be rendering this file format. Then over here you can select the encoder. I will select this option and I will change the quality. I will select the lossless quality. Okay, and that's it. Now again, go back over here, click on render and click on the render animation. And now everything is being glued together and the final animation file is generated. You can see the frame number over here, and let's wait for the frame 600 so we can verify the final file. Okay, almost there. Okay, here it is. Let's go back to the temporary folder and here's the file. Let's run the file. To run the file, I'm using VLC Media Player. And here it is. Here's our animation. Okay, that would be all for today. I hope that you liked this video. If you like the videos I create, please press the like and subscribe buttons. Thanks a lot and have a nice day.